Today, our allies, the Kurds, are launching a major attack against the brutal terrorists of ISIS in a strategic city in northern Iraq called Sinjar. The Kurdish fighters, who are known as the Peshmerga, are trying to cut off an important supply route for the Islamic radicals.
The attack is just the latest example of how the Kurds have been fighting back against ISIS. CBN News recently went to the front lines of that battle for a rare look at the territory the Peshmerga have already taken back from the Islamic terrorists. Here's Chris Mitchell from Kurdistan.
General Carson of the Kurdish military took CBN News to the front lines. We crossed the fabled Euphrates River and passed the Mosul Dam. 1 year ago, ISIS captured the dam and threatened Iraq with ecological catastrophe. Destroying the dam would have sent a 60-foot wall of water all the way to Baghdad, killing as many as 500,000 people. The Peshmerga took back the dam with the help of U.S. airstrikes. On the way, Carson told us about ISIS.
They are like fire. They're not against a specific ethnic people or religion. They're against everything.
We passed villagers showing support for the military. Without the Peshmerga, their village would be overrun by ISIS.
They're very glad to live with the Kurds and under the control of the Kurds.
We go through several checkpoints in territory once contested by the Islamic State and the Peshmerga.
This is the most dangerous place for all of us and for ISIS. These places that you see weren't captured easily.
They take us up to their base, but caution us not to take any video inside. This is the front lines between ISIS and Peshmerga. ISIS fighters are just about 500 meters away from this position. And a lot of people say this is a key sector because it controls the Mosul Dam. But more than that, many people say this is the battle line, the fault line between the free world and ISIS.
These villages that you see belong to ISIS.
Carson commands this forward base.
They believe that this is the line of the free world. This is why when ISIS comes to fight against the Peshmerga, they believe that they're crossing the border into Europe.
Soon after we arrive, ISIS fires 2 mortars toward another Kurdish position.
This is the only way they can show they're still active.
Back at regional headquarters, we spoke with Major General Bajat Arab.
Don't forget, the Peshmerga right now are fighting for the sake of the whole free world. If you wanted to take a look at the whole world, no one stands against ISIS. Look at what happened to the Iraqi army. No one fought ISIS, only the Peshmerga.
He painted a sobering picture of ISIS.
If the other people in the world want to know or see how dangerous ISIS is, let them come to Mosul, see what happened to the Yazidis and Christians.
He blamed the Baghdad government for the lack of advanced weapons they need to fight ISIS. He described a dismal picture of how they need to maintain their weapons.
Sometimes we have to repair one weapon with another. This is how we've used the old weapons to fight against ISIS.
Despite those old weapons, retired U.S. General Jay Garner says the Kurds are taking the battle to ISIS.
The only people that are successfully fighting ISIS is the Kurdish Peshmerga. You got a country here of 4.5, 5 million people that are totally pro-American, more so than we're pro-American. They're in one of the most strategic locations in the world, in the Middle East for us. To their east is our enemy Iran, to the south is our enemy Shia Iraq, to the west is our enemy Syria, and to the north is what we call a NATO ally, Turkey.
Garner says Kurdistan is a military man's dream.
You're at a perfect place where you could strike out of there at any of your enemies, plus you got support in the north with an ally.
General Arab added how grateful he was to the U.S.
We'd love to tell the American people that the Kurds are the only true friends they have in this area.
The Peshmerga say a decisive factor in the battle against ISIS has been U.S. airstrikes. But they say with more arms, ammunition, and heavy weapons, they can make even more advances against the Islamic State. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, on the front lines with the Kurdish Peshmerga.
Thanks, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, geopolitically, look, these Kurds are wonderful people. They are absolutely our friends and allies. They stand for democracy and free enterprise and freedom. They are very warm-hearted people, and they are fierce fighters. Now listen, There's a Kurdish enclave in Iraq. Iraq doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. It's broken into Shia and Sunni enclaves, and then you've got this little Kurdistan. And Kurdistan is like a thriving free enterprise zone, and they've also got some oil. All right. Now, in the northern part of Syria, there is a Kurdistan. Syria doesn't exist anymore. It's all torn apart with warring factions. There is a little sliver of Turkey that is Kurdish, and I think that the Turks might not like it, but I think it could be accomplished. We need to take the lead and say, join those enclaves together and let's have a free, independent Kurdistan. They deserve their own country. They have the means to do it. They have the intelligence to govern. They have oil in the fields there in Kirkuk. And why not give it to them? Why make them subject to these dysfunctional regimes like Syria and Iraq and in Turkey, which is not exactly our buddy anymore? It's got to be done. And I hope that we can begin to be a voice, and others will be a voice, to say they deserve their own country. Well, in other news, one of the top Republican presidential candidates told college students Wednesday the reason for his success is his Christian faith. Wendy Griffith has that story.
That's right, Pat. Ben Carson told the students at Liberty University Wednesday that he depends on God for guidance, including his decision to run for president.
And I finally said, Lord, you know, this was not on my bucket list, but if you truly want me to do this, all the pundits say it's impossible, but nothing is impossible for you. So if you open the doors, I will walk through them. And he began opening the doors.
Obviously, a lot of our...
In a question and answer session afterward, Carson quoted from chapter 3 of the book of Proverbs, which says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and that God will direct your paths. Carson said those verses encourage him because many in the media want to bring him down since he represents something they can't stand. And he encouraged the students not to be intimidated by secular progressives who want to silence anyone who disagrees with them. Carson spoke about key policy issues in his speech as well, like the dangers of the national debt, the problems with Obamacare, and others. And Pat, I love the fact that he said that running for president wasn't on his bucket list.
You know, it's true. I know how it is. Listen, Ben Carson was a very active and distinguished member of the Board of Trustees of Regent University. He served, good grief, 10, 15 years. And we really appreciated the wisdom he brought to our deliberations. There's one thing, for some reason, hasn't been pointed out, and I don't understand it, because the press is so eager to pick at any little biographical glitch in terms of Ben Carson. But during the debate that just took place, Donald Trump, did you see that, Terry? All right, you remember what he said? He said, I met Putin. We both did 60 Minutes, and I met him in the green room, and he's a nice guy. I was on, and then he was on. Listen, I've been on 60 Minutes. They never do live shows with anybody. It's always taped, and they always put the package together. Putin was taped in Moscow, and Trump was taped in New Jersey or New York, and they didn't meet in any green room, and I just don't understand why the media isn't going, whoa, you know, 4 Pinocchios and all that stuff. Well, I haven't heard a word about that.
Well, I haven't either. This is the first I've heard about it. But, you know, the whole, I think we clearly see the parsing and picking and pulling of every little jot and tittle of anything that can be seen as a problem.
What Hillary Clinton did about Benghazi is not a little picking. And what this thing about Trump of saying, I met with Putin and I can deal with Putin and he's a nice guy kind of thing, when he never saw him in his life, that to me is blatant falsehood. And somebody's got to call him on that. I mean, you know, he's leading the pack now, and he's a friend of mine and so forth. So, but nevertheless, we've got to say what's got to be there. I don't understand why people haven't made something of that. But as I say, 60 Minutes never never does live shows. They always tape. They go to your place, wherever it is, or they follow you around and they tape, and then they have inserts with people making comments, etc.
The president thought Putin was his friend too.
Yeah,
So,
I look at, well, that was George. I looked into Vladimir's eyes, and I saw his soul. And somebody said, like John McCain's doing, I look in his eyes, I see a KGB agent. Okay, well, so much for that. But anyhow, Ben Carson, a stirring message. And I might add, John Kasich is going to be at Regent this coming week. We had Jeb Bush the other day, and he did a great job. And I think Kasich's going to do a good job. He's coming on Thursday. That's this coming Thursday. All right, Wendy.
All right. Well, 2 Christian workers who were fired for refusing to call a 6-year-old girl a transgender boy are fighting back in court. Dale Hurd has that story.
We should be able to stand up for our rights without getting terminated for it.
Lawyers for a Texas teacher have filed a federal discrimination lawsuit after she says she was fired for refusing to address a 6-year-old girl as a transgender boy. Madeline Kirksey and co-worker Akeisha Wyatt say a 6-year-old girl came to the Children's Lighthouse Learning Center in Katy, Texas, wanting to be called a boy. The child's same-sex parents presented her as transgender.
I took a stance, first off, because of my beliefs. I trust God. And secondly, I stood up for the protection of all the children, not just the one.
I just want to stand up for my rights also. And what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
The teachers say the child seemed confused about her gender, at times claiming she was a girl and using the girls' restroom. Their attorney filed a complaint on the basis of their religious beliefs, race, age, and gender. A spokesman for the Children's Lighthouse Learning Centers told TV station KTRK via iPhone that he believes this is simply part of a bigger national agenda on transgender rights.
It seems to be that this individual has an agenda that goes beyond just the student's best interest and her cause of termination.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Pat, this transgender issue is becoming huge.
Well, a little 3 or 4 year old or a 6-year-old, what do they know? I mean, you know, little boys dress up as little girls probably dress up occasionally as little boys, and it has nothing to do with their actual identity. And the little kid wants to be called she or he or whatever. But look, he's got equipment that qualifies him as a male, not a female. And by the time you're 6, you don't know what you want to do. And they say many of these so-called transgenders, you know, if somebody sincerely and honestly, after much thought and understanding, feels that they're a woman trapped in a man's body, etc., a sex change operation is okay. I'm not criticizing it, but I think in a case like this little kid doesn't know what he or she wants. And to fire teachers because they won't go along with the meanderings of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is just insane. They don't know who they are or what they're doing, but God gave them a certain kind of physical equipment, and I think they ought to stick with that until somebody more mature knows what's going on. Wendy?
Pat, a severe storm system that started in the west is making its way east, affecting nearly 24 states. Wind, snow, heavy rains, and even tornadoes are causing havoc for millions. George Thomas brings us that story.
This was the scene on a stretch of highway in Douglas County, Colorado.
Saving it? Oh, he saved it.
Morning commuters slipping and sliding as they tried to navigate icy road conditions. An hour west of here, up to 12 inches of snow fell in the mountains of Colorado, just in time for the opening of Copper Mountain Ski Resort.
We got 7 inches of snow overnight, but it is clearly still snowing. So we are looking at probably close to a foot at this point. But again, it is still coming down, which we were very excited about. We couldn't ask for a better opening day.
Similar sentiments echoed in parts of Northern California, as skiers and snowboarders also welcomed winter's early arrival. But the storm that roared into parts of Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas on Wednesday also brought strong winds and large hail.
It's been rough. It's slow going. 55 mile an hour from Kansas City. That's about all I could get. Just want to go, 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 but you can't.
Tornado on the ground.
10 tornadoes were reported in Iowa, knocking down trees, ripping through industrial buildings, and flipping several big rigs on their side. The storm will bring howling winds and rain across much of the north-central U.S. through Thursday. By Friday, the weather system heads east into stable air.
It's all happening at a time when some European researchers say get ready for a decade of global cooling, not global warming.
A team of scientists believe in 15 years the Earth is likely to experience a mini ice age. They predict that from 2030 to 2040, the sun's solar activity will fall by 60%, leading to a period of colder weather, often with freezing conditions. George Thomas, CBN News.
Thanks, George. Well, you may not be obese, but having a pot belly could be even worse. That's because of the dangers of fat around the waistline. It can lead to a higher risk of death than being overweight or obese with fat concentrated on the hips and thighs. Those are the findings from new research out this week. Fat that builds around the stomach, around the abdomen organs, is specifically linked to diabetes, heart disease, and other problems. And the answer isn't sit-ups. It's a healthy diet and enough physical activity to burn off those extra calories. Pat, the battle of the bulge continues.
There, and I know, Wendy, it will not take place in your life because you are so fit. I did about 60 or 70 crunches yesterday. Not because of this piece, but I just did it. But I don't know if the crunches get your gut down or not.
Well, I think it's a combination. I think it helps tighten, but to get rid of the kind of fat they're talking about.
I've got one of those inclined benches, so you lean in back and come up, and you know. I think I did really 60 or 70 of them. I should do several hundred of them, but anyhow. I didn't.
You slacker.
Yeah, but I was in the gym. All right. I have to be ahead of these news people. All right.